Little girl drew her mother with black eyes and long clawed fingernails. Doctor ordered emergency isolation. The school bell rang through Santa Clara Elementary, sending the children scrambling noisily into their classrooms, backpacks bouncing, laughter echoing in the hallways. But in classroom 1B, a little girl always sat quietly in the back corner, her big eyes staring out the window, her small hands busy with colored pencils. "Emma, you're drawing again, huh? May I take a look?" Ms. Elizabeth bent down gently, her voice soft, one hand lightly touching the sheet of paper on the desk. Emma didn't say a word. She simply pushed the drawing toward her teacher, her eyes still fixed on the eraser on the table, as if avoiding any eye contact. Elizabeth looked down. In the picture was a woman sitting on the edge of a bed, her eyes pitch black, her lips tightly closed as if sewn shut, and her hands with long, sharp nails were clawing at a pillow, leaving jagged, torn lines. "Who is this, Emma?" Elizabeth asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Emma whispered, barely audible, "Mom." Elizabeth froze. "Your mom?" she repeated, trying not to let her face reveal anything. The girl nodded, then suddenly said something that sent chills down Elizabeth's spine. "She scratches her face every night. Her nails go crack crack, like tearing fabric." The air in the classroom seemed colder than usual. Elizabeth tightened her grip on the drawing, her eyes fixed on the distorted, dark lines. The other kids were still chattering about their neighbor's cat or drawing houses with chimneys. Only Emma always drew dark, chilling images. After class, Elizabeth brought the drawing to the teacher's lounge. She called her best friend Claire, who taught at another elementary school. "Claire, I have a student." She drew her mom looking like a monster. And not just once. The eyes are all black, the nails like claws. "I'm really worried." Claire's voice slowed a bit. "I think you should talk to the principal. There might be something wrong at home." Elizabeth was silent for a moment. She had been teaching for nearly 10 years and had seen kids draw their parents as superheroes, sometimes even vampires or robots. But Emma's eyes, those empty eyes that didn't belong to a 6-year-old, were what haunted her the most. The next morning, Elizabeth arrived early. She asked to see the principal, Mr. James Smith, a strict but thoughtful man. "Sir, I need you to look at these drawings," Elizabeth said, placing Emma's sketchbook on the desk. James pushed his glasses up his nose and flipped through the pages. His face slowly changed. "Which student is this?" he asked, his voice growing heavy. "Emma. She's in my class. Very quiet, never causes trouble, but doesn't have any friends. And she draws like this all the time." James nodded. "We'll bring in the school psychologist. This can't be ignored." The following day, a woman in a white coat walked into class 1B. Her hair was tied back neatly, her eyes bright, and her voice calm and kind. Elizabeth introduced her. "Everyone, this is Dr. Angela. Today she's going to play a drawing game with us." Emma looked up briefly, then lowered her gaze again. While the other kids giggled excitedly at the grown-up in a doctor coat, Emma quietly opened her pencil box. Angela Bennett, a school psychologist with over 20 years of experience, walked over and sat next to Emma's desk. "May I see what you're drawing?" she asked gently. Emma didn't reply. Angela didn't push. She just sat with her quietly, watching her draw. Finally, Emma put her pencil down and slid the paper toward her. Angela looked. The picture showed a dark room, with a bed, curtains, and a woman standing in the corner. Her eyes were like two black holes, and her mouth stretched wide, all the way to her ears. What made Angela shiver was the hand clawing at the wall. Emma had used a razor to slice the paper, creating the effect. Angela took a deep breath. "Emma, do you often dream about your mom like this?" she asked softly. For the first time, Emma looked into her eyes. She answered slowly, word by word. "That's not a dream. She really stands like that. In the dark. Angela turned to Elizabeth, who had been watching from a distance, and gave her a subtle nod. After class, she met again with Principal James. "We need emergency removal," she said firmly. "The child should not spend another night in that house." But, without concrete evidence, James hesitated. "No, you misunderstand. I don't need proof to protect a child. Emma is clearly living in constant fear. That's enough." That very afternoon, using her authority, Angela coordinated with the local child protection agency. A small transport vehicle picked Emma up from school without prior notice to her mother. As social worker Thomas Parker knelt beside her and asked softly, "Is there anything you'd like to bring with you, Emma?" She held her colored pencil, then shook her head. "I don't want to go home." "Why not?" Emma whispered, her voice trembling. "Mom's not mom anymore." That night, Amanda, Emma's mother, came to the school, visibly anxious. She wore a hooded jacket, dark clothes, and her face was gaunt, as if she hadn't slept in days. "Where's my daughter?" she asked, voice flat. James kept calm. "Ms. Amanda, Emma is currently in the care of Child Protective Services. We're concerned about some signs." "What are you talking about?" Her voice turned sharp. "I'm her mother." Angela entered. "We're not denying that. But Emma is showing signs that she doesn't feel safe at home." "You think I hit her?" Amanda scoffed, but her eyes were blank. No one responded. The air grew thick with silence. After leaving the school, Amanda walked home. Thomas, assigned to Emma's case, quietly followed from a distance. He spoke into his earpiece. "She's not angry. Not sad either. Her eyes, like a robot's." When Amanda opened her apartment door and stepped inside, Thomas caught a glimpse. All the windows were completely covered with black paper. The next morning, in a small room at the Child Protection Center, Emma sat on a low wooden chair, holding her chipped colored pencil box. Angela placed a warm glass of milk on the table. "Would you like to drink this?" she asked. Emma shook her head but stared at the milk for a moment before whispering, "The milk at home is like that too, but it tastes bitter." Angela tilted her head slightly. "Bitter? Since when?" "A long time. Mom says it's just because I have nightmares. That's why it tastes different." Angela quickly jotted it down in her notebook, her heart sinking. She handed Emma a blank sheet of paper. "Could you draw your bedroom for me? The way you remember it." Emma didn't speak, just nodded and began to draw. Outside the room, Thomas Parker watched through the one-way glass, standing beside Elizabeth, Emma's teacher, who had been invited to help analyze the girl's behavior. "She draws so fast," Thomas whispered. "She draws like breathing. Every time she's scared, Emma doesn't scream, she doesn't cry, she just grabs paper and draws," Elizabeth replied, eyes fixed on those small hands. In less than 10 minutes, Emma pushed the sheet toward Angela. The bedroom emerged in soft, chilling strokes: a small bed near the window, a standing wardrobe in the corner, and a figure sitting on the floor against the wall, the face unclear, but the hands were clawing at the wall, leaving deep red gashes. "Who is that, Emma?" Angela asked. The girl said, "Mom. She sits like that every night. Doesn't sleep, just claws the wall. I close my eyes, then open them just a little, to see if she's asleep. But she never sleeps." Angela felt a chill down her spine. Thomas stepped in urgently. "I'd like to request a full medical exam for Emma. We need to know for sure, has she ever suffered physical abuse?" Angela nodded. "I was about to suggest the same. It's both our duty and an unspoken fear." The next day, at Midtown Medical Center, Emma was taken to a specialized pediatric clinic. Dr. Emily Thompson, a woman in her 40s with extensive experience in childhood trauma, conducted a full checkup herself. "Can I see this arm, sweetheart?" Her voice was soft as the wind. Emma pulled up her sleeve, revealing blotchy bruises along her wrist. Thomas, standing nearby, furrowed his brow. These bruises, definitely not from normal play. Dr. Emily gently rotated the girl's shoulder. And here's signs of being gripped hard. Most likely at night, while she was sleeping. Angela photographed the injuries and nodded. This is enough to open a formal case. Even though the wounds aren't severe, it's clear that Emma doesn't feel safe sleeping next to her mother. Emma suddenly spoke. Mom's arms are really long. Long enough to reach my feet. I can't breathe. Elizabeth stepped forward and gently placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. Sweetheart, you've been so brave. Thomas looked at Emma for a moment, then said quietly, we need to record tonight. That evening, at the center, a small recording device was placed next to Emma's bed. The girl fell asleep after hours of tension. In the quiet darkness, only the gentle hum of the ceiling fan and the steady breathing of a child slipping into dreams could be heard. But around 2 a.m., the sounds began to change. The playback the next morning made everyone in the center's meeting room fall silent. A sleepy voice could be heard. Mom's waking up, she knows I'm awake, don't breathe too loud. The whisper came from Emma herself, even though she was still asleep. Then came the sound of nails dragging along a metal surface, clearly an auditory hallucination from Emma, but in the recording, it played like a nightmare. I can't even imagine, Elizabeth stammered. She's dreaming of being watched. Every single breath. Angela closed her notebook, her eyes red-rimmed. A child can't invent something like this. What Emma feels is real whether adults believe it or not. Thomas nodded and pulled out his phone. I'm requesting a warrant from the police department to search Amanda's home. If necessary, we need 24/7 surveillance. In the neighborhood where Amanda lived, whispers had begun to circulate. She's strange. Lately, she doesn't go out much, said Mrs. Donna, the next-door neighbor, when Thomas stopped by. Her eyes always look vacant. Every night I hear the sound of chairs dragging, furniture being moved. One time. I even heard laughing, but like a laugh without a soul. An elderly man, Mr. George, chimed in. I once saw her standing outside her door in the middle of the night, clutching a pillow, staring into the darkness. Like someone under hypnosis. Thomas asked, have you ever seen her with anyone? Any strange visitors? Mr. George shook his head. No. Never. But she covered all the windows with black paper. No one can see in. Meanwhile, at the center, Elizabeth was called in because Emma had drawn another picture. This time, she hadn't used crayons, she'd used thick, messy black ink. The drawing showed a bed with two figures, one, a little girl sleeping, the other a woman was clawing the bedsheet, her nails ripping through the fabric, exposing dark stains of blood. Angela held up the drawing and whispered, she's recording every night like a camera. Emma sat on the floor, still clutching her box of colors. She looked up at Elizabeth with shimmering eyes. Miss. Mom knows I draw these things. She'll be mad. No, Emma. You didn't do anything wrong, Elizabeth said, sitting down and pulling the girl into a hug. We're here to protect you. Emma said nothing. After a moment, she asked, if Mom can't see me, she'll look for me, won't she? Elizabeth's heart skipped. What did you say? Mom says, if I hide, she'll find me. She says, her nails can find me, even if I go underground. The air in the room instantly grew heavier. Thomas paused at the doorway and turned to Angela. I'm escalating this case to Orange County Child Protective Services today. Angela nodded, her lips pressed tight. We can't wait any longer. We can't arrest her without solid evidence. The child hasn't been beaten. There are no serious injuries indicating abuse, Inspector Lucy Taylor emphasized for the third time during the emergency meeting. Angela bit her lip and pushed Emma's drawings to the center of the table. You think these are just imagination? Every image is consistent, pitch black eyes, long fingernails, aggressive nighttime behavior. Lucy sighed softly. We've requested access to the residence records, but Emma's family is just the two of them. No father. Neighbors say Amanda has become withdrawn, but she's never caused any trouble. Thomas interjected, I've met Amanda twice. She doesn't get angry, doesn't cry, doesn't argue. She just smiles. Like anyone who touches her daughter doesn't matter. What kind of smile? Angela asked, eyes sharp. Thomas thought for a moment before answering, emotionless. Like a smile glued onto a porcelain doll. So fake it's chilling. Lucy checked her watch. We'll continue monitoring. If any further evidence emerges, we'll intervene immediately. That afternoon, Thomas visited Amanda's home again, this time as an officially authorized social worker. The door opened after a few seconds. Amanda stood there, hair loose, her deep-set eyes unblinking. Her fingernails were long, the tips black as if dipped in ink. Hello, Amanda. I need to recheck your living conditions as part of protocol, Thomas said. She tilted her head, then stepped aside without a word. Thomas entered, eyes quickly scanning the space. The wooden floor was spotless, everything arranged in perfect symmetry, more like a display room than a real living space. He asked, do you have any friends or family who visit? Amanda stared at him, then replied, I don't need friends. I have my daughter. But Emma isn't here anymore. Just temporarily, she smiled. A mother always knows where her child is. Thomas felt a chill down his spine. Do you have trouble sleeping? Do you stay up late often? He asked, probing. Amanda leaned on the table. I don't need much sleep. My eyes are used to the dark. Right after leaving the apartment, Thomas went to see Amanda's former family doctor, Dr. Jacob Harris, who worked at a nearby community health clinic. She showed signs of prolonged postpartum depression, the doctor said, flipping through old files. Was there any treatment? Thomas asked. No. She refused. Said she wasn't crazy. Has she come back recently? No. Last time she was here was over a year ago. She seemed fine then. Thin, a little distracted, but not like this. Did anyone come with her? Thomas pressed. The doctor shook his head. No one at all. Thomas pulled out his phone and called Angela. She was diagnosed with postpartum depression. Untreated. No friends. No family. She stays up all night. I'm certain something's wrong. We need to dig deeper into her background. What about Emma's father? Angela asked. There's no record. Emma's birth certificate lists only the mother. That night, Angela visited Elizabeth's home. The two sat at the dinner table, the soft yellow light casting a muted atmosphere. I can't stop thinking about that girl, Elizabeth said, turning her teacup in her hands. That look in her eyes, like a little bird flying through fire. Angela nodded and pulled out several old drawings from her bag, ones the school had stored. She once drew her mother's fingernails being ripped off her fingers, with drops of blood. And in another, her mother was hugging Emma while she slept, but the mother's arms were long like snakes, wrapped tightly around the girl. Elizabeth's hand trembled, nearly spilling her tea. Oh my God! This isn't a child's normal imagination. It's trauma. And that trauma is showing logical repetition. What are you going to do next? I'm going to request a warrant to examine Emma's personal belongings from when she was still living at home. The next morning, at the center, Emma drew another picture. When Elizabeth arrived, the girl pointed to an image of a large handprint on a bedsheet. What's this, sweetie? Elizabeth asked gently. It's the handprint. Mom leaves it every morning, Emma replied. The hand's really big, red and hot. Does it hurt when you see it? The little girl nodded. Mom holds me really tight, like she's afraid I'll disappear. Elizabeth choked up. But you're not disappearing. You just need to breathe. That very afternoon, Angela and Thomas returned to Amanda's apartment, this time accompanied by Inspector Lucy and another investigator, David Wilson. Amanda opened the door. This time, she didn't smile, didn't speak. She simply stepped aside, her eyes as vacant as ever. "We need to examine Emma's bedroom," Lucy said, holding out the warrant. The room was small and unervingly tidy. On the bed was a pink blanket, perfectly smoothed. The single overhead light cast shadows on the wall where small scratch marks could be seen. Thomas crouched down, gently running his fingers along the wooden edge of the bed. He could feel tiny nail marks, very fine, as if someone had desperately clawed at the wood. He turned to Lucy. "Do you have a UV light?" Lucy nodded and pulled a small flashlight from her coat. When the purple light swept across the bed's edge, several dark stains lit up like dried blood hastily wiped away. Amanda remained still, showing no reaction. Lucy looked at her. "Do you know where these marks came from?" "The girl, she gets nosebleeds," Amanda replied, her voice flat. "Maybe that's it." Thomas turned away. He didn't believe her. No one in the room did. Outside the apartment, Angela collapsed onto the stairs. She's completely detached from reality. She's living in some kind of psychological state, with no control over her behavior. Thomas asked, "Do you think it might be dissociative identity disorder?" Angela shook her head. "Too early to say. But it's clearly more than depression. She's being controlled. But by what, I don't know yet." Thomas suddenly said, "We should check her nutritional habits. Some of the things Emma said, bitter milk, mom never sleeps, her hands are hot, they might be linked to chemical exposure." Angela looked up, eyes sharp. "You think someone else might have done something to Amanda?" Thomas nodded. "She has no friends. But maybe someone close to her, someone who once lived with her, left something behind. A trace. An invisible hand." On Monday morning, Angela called Principal James Smith from the Child Protection Center. "Do you still have Emma's old drawings from school?" she asked urgently. James hesitated. "I think they're still in Elizabeth's file cabinet." "Why? What's going on?" "It's important. The details Emma includes in her drawings could be clues. I need to study them in chronological order." 2 hours later, Elizabeth arrived with a large folder containing nearly 30 drawings. Angela and Thomas laid them out across the meeting room floor. Thomas bent over the first one, a small house, windows covered, red roof, black sky. Elizabeth pointed to a small corner. "That's the first drawing she made when she started school. At the time, I thought it was just a child's scribble. But now..." Angela began arranging the drawings in chronological sequence, month by month. The colors shifted, initially bright and vibrant, but gradually fading into grays, blacks, and deep reds. "Look at this one," Thomas said, pointing to the 14th drawing. "The mother's hand is coming out of her sleeve. But, it's not a human hand." Elizabeth frowned. "It looks like human skin has peeled off, and underneath are claws." Angela nodded, her expression grave. "She's trying to warn us about something. Maybe about her mother's behavior. Maybe a psychological transformation. Or something far more terrifying that she doesn't have words for." Next came a drawing of mother and daughter sleeping. The mother had no eyes. Her right arm stretched out, wrapping around the child. Elizabeth held her breath. "It looks like a snake." Thomas whispered, "The hand is too long. And the wrist looks squeezed, same as the bruises on Emma's body." Another drawing showed a shadowy figure standing in the corner of a room, hand pressed to the wall, leaving red marks. Emma had slashed red crayon across the paper like a knife wound. Angela said quietly, "I want to reassess Emma's mental state. This time, we'll use free drawing with a family and emotional relationship model." In the center's playroom, Emma sat at a small wooden table, holding a new box of crayons. "Sweetheart, today let's draw your family," Angela said with a gentle smile. "Draw mommy, yourself, and anyone else you think belongs in your picture, okay?" Emma didn't speak. She just nodded slightly and began drawing. Elizabeth stood behind the one-way glass, her heart pounding. Thomas sat beside her, whispering, "Every stroke means something. We need to read it." After nearly 20 minutes, Emma put her crayon down. Angela approached gently. "Can you tell me who's in your picture?" The girl pointed to a small girl with long hair and a pink dress. "Me." Then she pointed to a woman with no pupils and very long arms. "Mom." "And this one?" Angela pointed to a man standing behind a curtain. Emma hesitated, then whispered, "He doesn't have a name. But every time mommy cries, he's there. Behind the curtain." Angela gripped the drawing in her hand. There might have been someone else living with Amanda. A man. Thomas stood up abruptly. "We need to research the apartment. This time thoroughly." That evening, Angela and Thomas returned to Amanda's place, this time with trace evidence analyst Daniel Carter, known as the third eye of the local forensic team. The apartment was unchanged. Impossibly tidy. No musty smell. No obvious signs of daily life. Daniel used a UV light to scan the entire bedroom, especially under the bed and inside the wardrobe. "There's a small gap under the floor," he said, crouching. Thomas leaned in. "A lock?" "No. Sealed with clear adhesive. But it can be opened." Daniel took out tools and carefully pried at the corners. After 3 minutes, a floorboard popped up, revealing a dark hollow beneath. He reached in and pulled out a small gray plastic box. Inside were a bag of white powder and several unmarked blister packs of pills. Angela picked up the bag with trembling hands. Psychoactive drugs. High dosage. Thomas was shocked. No prescription, no paperwork. Why would Amanda keep this? Maybe she didn't. Daniel pointed to the bottom of the box. "There's a slip of paper. Sender, Ethan Martin." The next day, Thomas immediately checked the residency records. Ethan Martin once lived with Amanda 4 years ago, ex-boyfriend, worked in the chemical pharmaceutical field. "Where is he now?" Angela asked. "Moved to Miami 2 years ago. Cut off contact after Emma turned 3, Thomas said, face pale. "But if he left those drugs behind, then this isn't just a case of mental illness anymore. He could have used those drugs to destroy Amanda's mind. Turned her into a ghost of herself," Angela said slowly. "Then he disappeared," Thomas clenched his fists. "Leaving behind a broken mother and a terrified child." Elizabeth was called in, and when she heard the full story, she buried her face in her hands, sobbing. "We thought the mother was the monster, but maybe she was just another victim." Angela looked down the hallway, where Emma was drawing a sleeping cat in the sunlight. That child lived through hell. And no one saw it. No one believed her. Not until she picked up a crayon. Thomas whispered, "And now, we'll follow that crayon to the truth." News of the 6-year-old girl named Emma who often drew disturbing pictures of her mother began to spread through the local community like a slow-burning fire. The regional paper, the Orange County Tribune, published a semi-anonymous piece titled, "The Shadow Behind the Sealed Window is a Child Crying Out Through Her Drawings." That very afternoon, in a cafe near Santa Clara Elementary, a group of parents huddled and whispered. "I heard that little Emma drew her mom with witch claws. Not just one drawing. Over a dozen. All showing her mom with pitch-black eyes, like she was possessed. What's weird is, the kid's super well-behaved. Never causes trouble, and yet." Another woman chimed in, "I saw her mom at Safeway once. Hair a total mess, looked like a zombie. And those nails. God, so long and black, like soot." At the Child Protection Center, Thomas set his phone down after reading the press update. This isn't good. If this spreads, the public will turn on us, and the media will twist the facts for clicks, he told Angela. We need to act faster than them. The slower we move, the more Emma becomes a pity pawn, Angela replied, eyes tense. Elizabeth entered, her expression grim. I just received an anonymous message on the school's phone. She placed the phone on the table. The message was brief. If you want Emma safe, stay away. It could be a prank. Or it might not be, Thomas said gravely. We're touching something, someone doesn't want uncovered. Angela narrowed her eyes. It started with Amanda, but now every piece is pointing to someone in the shadows, pulling the strings. That very night, Thomas returned alone to the neighborhood where Amanda lived. He stood hidden in the shadows, observing the building from afar. Under the dim yellow streetlight, the third-floor windows Amanda's unit remained sealed with black paper. No light. No movement. Just a silent block in the heart of the city, he murmured. An elderly woman approached Mrs. Donna, the downstairs neighbor, and recognized Thomas. You're from the child center, right? Yes. Do you know something? She looked around, then whispered, lately, Amanda hasn't left her apartment. But the other night, I saw her shadow pass through the hallway, like she was crawling. Not walking. Crawling. Thomas swallowed hard. Are you sure? I've lived here 30 years. I know what I saw. I even heard scratching on a door, around 3 in the morning. Scratching. Like fingernails scraping wood. Screeching, like tearing cloth. When I cracked my door open to look, there was nothing there. Just a metallic smell. Like blood. The next morning, a post went viral on social media with the headline, Doll Mother of the Night, a strange phenomenon in Orange County. The article included a candid photo of Amanda standing in the middle of a supermarket, staring blankly at the shelves, her face expressionless, nails long and black. In the comments. Looks like she's possessed. Letting a child live with someone like that is insane. They need to lock her up in a psych ward immediately. Elizabeth slammed her laptop shut. They don't know anything. They don't understand how kind and sensitive Emma is. Angela clutched the case file tightly. Crowds are always swayed by what they see, not what actually happens. And what Emma saw, no one believed it from the start. Emma began to change. She no longer drew as often, becoming quieter, more withdrawn. In a private session, Angela asked. Emma, you haven't been drawing lately. Why is that? The girl replied softly, because Mom knows. Knows what? She knows what I draw. Knows I tell people things. She doesn't like that. But Mom's not here, right? Emma nodded slowly. She doesn't have to be. She still comes in my dreams. What do you dream about? I'm lying down. She sits under the bed. Her nails tap on the floor. Crack, crack, crack. I don't dare breathe too loud. Angela felt a chill run down her spine. She gently put an arm around Emma's shoulders, her voice shaking, You're not alone anymore. I'm here, Elizabeth's here, Thomas is here. No one can hurt you now. Emma looked at her, blinked once, then whispered, But, if Mom can't see me, she'll find me. And her nails will find me too. That night, Thomas couldn't sleep. He flipped through the files on his desk again and again, stopping at Angela's detailed notes about Emma's recurring dreams. Mom taps her nails on the wall. Mom knows I'm awake. Mom looks for me under the bed. He remembered what Mrs. Donna had said. Then the images of those claws in Emma's drawings. Mom's arms, long like snakes. They wrap around me. I can't breathe. That sentence echoed in his head like a voice from a deep abyss. Elizabeth texted him near midnight. Some of Emma's classmates are talking. Their parents say she's possessed. We have to do something before this gets out of hand. Thomas replied. Tomorrow, I'll request a new warrant to search Amanda's apartment again. This time we go deeper. The next morning, at the center, Angela looked through the glass and saw Emma hunched over, drawing again. She walked in gently and sat down beside her. It's been a while since you last drew. Emma didn't respond. Angela asked, Can I see it? Emma handed over the drawing. It showed a room filled with light. Emma sat on the floor, and her mother stood in the corner, bound by strings, but the strings weren't pulling the mother. They were tightening around Emma. Angela stared. Who's controlling the strings? Emma shook her head and said nothing. Then Angela noticed a detail. In the corner of the drawing, outside the window, was a figure of a man holding the ends of the strings, his face shaded entirely in black. Do you know who this is? Emma replied in a whisper, like a passing breeze, I don't know his name. But I saw him once putting a white powder in the kitchen cabinet. It poured rain Thursday morning. The drops hit the Child Protection Center's windows in waves, like cold knocking from the outside. Emma sat in a corner reading a book, holding a worn-out teddy bear tightly. She hadn't spoken all morning. No smiles. No drawings. Angela walked in and sat beside her. Are you feeling tired, Emma? Emma shook her head. Is something making you sad? After a long pause, Emma whispered, Mom is looking. Angela froze. You dreamed of her again? Emma shook her head again, slower this time, her eyes unblinking. Not in a dream. I know she's really looking. She said if people hide me, she'll hide them. Angela swallowed hard. Who told you that? Mom, Emma answered firmly. In the emergency meeting that followed with Thomas and Elizabeth, Angela opened with urgency. We're at a dangerous point. Emma's psyche is destabilizing from the constant sense of being hunted. We can't rule out trauma-induced hallucinations. Thomas exhaled heavily. And if someone like Ethan deliberately manipulated Amanda's mind, then Emma's fear that Mom is coming might not be just paranoia. Elizabeth dropped her head into her hands. I'm terrified she'll show up at the center one night, and take Emma away. Thomas looked to Angela. Can we increase security? Yes. But what I'm more concerned about is Emma. She's showing signs of acute anxiety disorder. If we don't act, she could spiral into a breakdown. Elizabeth nodded, trying to hold her voice steady. Last night she didn't sleep. I went into her room and saw her sitting up, eyes wide open, staring at the wall. I asked if she was okay, and she just said, if Mom doesn't sleep, then I can't either. The room fell silent. The next day, Thomas returned to the police department with a formal request to re-enter Amanda's apartment, this time for chemical and neurotoxin analysis tied to the psychotropic substances previously found. Inspector Lucy Taylor hesitated. There's no evidence of a crime. You can't keep barging into someone's home just because a child draws disturbing pictures. Thomas slammed his hand on the desk. You don't think it's strange when a 6-year-old draws herself being strangled by hands as long as snakes? When her drawings show a man outside her window pulling strings around her neck, and her mother's just a puppet? Lucy stared at him for a long moment, then flipped through the file. I'll sign. But you have 48 hours. That afternoon, a chemical inspection team was brought in. Meanwhile, Elizabeth and Angela took Emma to a nearby park, hoping to give her a breath of fresh air away from the suffocating atmosphere of the center. The rain had just stopped. Wet leaves stuck to the concrete. Emma walked slowly, gripping Elizabeth's hand. You know what? Emma whispered. We had a cat at home. But Mom said it wasn't a cat. She said it was an eye. An eye? Elizabeth asked, surprised. She said the cat kept an eye on me. That if I said strange things, it would tell on me. Angela's chest tightened. At the apartment, Thomas and the forensics team began analyzing the entire kitchen system. Under the sink, they found a collection of empty pill containers, no labels, no caps. Chemical specialist Michael tested the previous sample. This compound is extremely dangerous. It directly affects the central nervous system. Prolonged use leads to hallucinations, insomnia, obsessive loops, loss of behavioral control. Thomas whispered, "That's Amanda." Another technician, Lauren, handed Thomas a thin slip of paper hidden inside a cookbook. "When you're no longer yourself, I'll come take it all back." E.M. Thomas clenched his fists. Ethan Martin. Back at the center, Angela entered Emma's room and found the girl asleep in a chair. But what made her freeze was the unfinished drawing on the table. It showed a dark room, windows covered in black paper. The mother stood in the middle, arms so long they touched the floor, while Emma lay curled up on the bed. What sent chills down Angela's spine was this: next to the window, another figure had appeared for the first time. Emma had drawn the man's face. Angela leaned in. His face was pitch black, sharply angular, with a crooked grin. He had no lips, just long, needle-like white teeth. At his feet, a message was scrawled. "He comes at night. And he told Mommy, your nails aren't long enough, Amanda." That night, during an emergency meeting at the center, Thomas laid out everything: the note, the drug samples, the signature, GM. Angela concluded, "There's no more doubt. Ethan used drugs to manipulate Amanda's mind, causing such severe behavioral disorders that she became a puppet." Elizabeth, overcome with emotion, choked out, and Emma, all this time, all she could do was draw, hoping someone would notice. Thomas stood up, voice firm, "I will find him. Whatever it takes." Late at night, Elizabeth had dozed off in her office at the Child Protection Center. She jerked awake, startled by a faint sound like fingernails tapping on wood. Tap, tap, tap. Elizabeth stood up and walked into the hallway. All the lights were off except for a dim yellow bulb at the end of the corridor right in front of Emma's room. She approached, placed her hand on the doorknob, and opened it. Inside, Emma was sitting on the floor, eyes wide open, her face pale as chalk. "Emma? What's wrong, sweetheart?" The girl whispered, her voice no longer sounding like her own. "Mom is here. She's scratching the wall." Elizabeth looked around, no one. Then she noticed it on the wall behind the bed, 3 deep, horizontal scratches, as if real fingernails had just clawed through the paint. The next morning, Angela sat motionless in a chair, staring at a photo of the scratch marks Elizabeth had taken in Emma's room. 3 jagged, deep gouges, as though actual nails had pierced the plaster. What made Angela freeze was the dried streak of blood on one of them. Thomas entered. "I just got a report from the Miami police. Ethan Martin was previously investigated for illegal drug manufacturing, but the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. And now he's left a bloody signature on a child's wall," Angela murmured. Elizabeth sat down, visibly shaken. "I checked Emma's room before bedtime. No one came in, no windows were open. So where did the blood come from?" Thomas pulled out his phone and called the forensics unit. "I'm sending a sample of the blood. If it matches Amanda's DNA, we know what we're dealing with. If not, I'm afraid it's something worse." That night, Emma refused to sleep. She curled up under her blanket, eyes wide, staring into the shadows in the corner of the room. Angela sat beside her, holding her hand. "You're okay, sweetheart. I'm here. We're all here." Emma didn't reply. After a while, she asked, "Do you know that Mom is still nearby?" Angela flinched. "Who told you that?" "I heard her. She talks through the wall. She told me not to trust strangers, because they want to lock her away forever." "Sweetheart, your mom is sick. And we're trying to help her get better." Emma shook her head slightly, her voice barely audible. it's not sickness. Mom has turned into something else. The following morning, the forensics report arrived. The blood on the wall wasn't Amanda's. There was no match in the national DNA database. Thomas slammed his hand on the table. If it's not hers, then whose is it? Who got into a secured center in the middle of the night without anyone noticing? Elizabeth was speechless. I'm not sure we even know what we're dealing with anymore. Angela whispered, it could have been Emma who made the mark. Thomas turned sharply. No. She couldn't have scratched that deep. And the blood, where would it come from? Angela spoke slowly. There's a psychological theory called displaced memory. When a child witnesses extreme violence, they may unconsciously recreate those acts in a dissociative state. Elizabeth shook her head, tears falling. Emma is not the culprit. It's not her. That very day, Thomas obtained authorization to install surveillance cameras throughout Emma's room. No one objected anymore. Everything had gone too far to still consider this a simple case of mental illness or abuse. Infrared cameras were placed in all four corners of the room. Emma was aware. She sat on her bed, looked up at one of them and said, Mom's not going to like this. Angela sat beside her, gently stroking her hair. If your mom loves you, she won't hurt you. Emma lifted her head, her eyes hollow. I don't know if Mom is still Mom anymore. That night, the entire team stayed up. In the monitoring room, the screens showed all four angles clearly. Emma lay still under the blanket, not moving. Elizabeth glanced at the clock, 2:47 a.m. Thomas poured more coffee, eyes locked on the screen. Angela took notes minute by minute. Then, at 3:04, the screens began to flicker. The signal glitched. Screen 3, the one directly facing Emma's bed, suddenly went blurry, streaked with black lines. Elizabeth whispered, something's happening. When the feed returned 12 seconds later, all three froze. Emma was no longer lying down. She was sitting up, hugging her knees. And behind her in a strangely overexposed frame was a shadowy figure. A hunched figure, long dark hair, arms too long, nails curved and black as coal. The figure was thin, unnatural. Angela screamed, rewind it. Thomas played the footage back. But in the replay, the image was gone. Emma lay peacefully in bed. Nothing behind her. Elizabeth trembled. I saw it. We all saw it. Thomas clenched his fists. We're being manipulated. Not just Emma. All of us. The next morning, Emma had a high fever. She was delirious, murmuring in her sleep. Mom said, if I don't come back, she'll tear my skin off and bring me home, one piece at a time. The center's doctor administered medication to reduce the fever. Angela sat by Emma's side all morning, wiping her forehead. When the child woke up, she whispered, I don't hear Mom anymore. That's because you're safe now, sweetheart. No, Emma began to cry, it's because Mom is busy, looking for someone else. Someone else? Miss Elizabeth. Just then, Thomas's phone rang. It was Inspector Lucy. We've got a situation. Amanda's apartment was broken into. Nothing stolen. But there's a message written in blood on the living room wall. I found the scent of the girl. Stay out of it. Thomas shot up. Emma can't stay here another second. The Child Protection Center was temporarily evacuated. Emma was moved to a secure, undisclosed location under special supervision. But even in the new place, she couldn't sleep. Each night she sat on the bed, eyes wide open, clutching her pillow tightly. Elizabeth came to visit her. She knelt in front of the girl. Sweetheart, don't be scared. No one can hurt you anymore. Emma remained silent. I'll always be here for you. The girl looked up, and for the first time, there was a flicker of emotion in her eyes. She whispered. Miss, If one day you notice your fingernails starting to grow really long, please tell me, okay? The Orange County downpour had just cleared that morning, leaving shimmering puddles along the road. Inside Thomas Parker's office, the air was thick with tension. In front of him was the latest report from Inspector Lucy. These are the transaction records of unregistered psychoactive drugs over the last 3 years. And the name Ethan Martin appears 8 times, Lucy said bluntly. Thomas narrowed his eyes. 8 times? Why hasn't he been prosecuted? Lack of evidence. Every time, it's under a different name, a different code, a different delivery address. But, this time, he left a trace. She slid the last document toward him, a DNA report. The blood on Emma's wall, Thomas whispered. Lucy nodded. It's not in the national database, but we matched it to a civilian paternity test Ethan submitted in 2019. He once tried to claim Emma as his child and was denied. Thomas shot to his feet. God damn it. So he really did intend to take custody of Emma. That's not all. Lucy lowered her voice. We found an unsigned homeownership contract listing Amanda as the primary owner and Ethan as co-owner, after she would be deemed legally incapacitated. Later that day, Angela and Elizabeth attended a meeting with judicial and law enforcement representatives. We need an official declaration that Amanda's loss of legal capacity was influenced by external manipulation, Angela stated firmly. I've evaluated hundreds of psychiatric cases. Amanda wasn't just depressed, she was being poisoned. Slowly. Day by day. Do you have concrete evidence? The chief attorney asked. Yes. Her initial blood work from the hospital shows traces of promethazine, a powerful neurological drug not approved for long-term use. Elizabeth added, we also have Emma's drawings. They show clear signs of her mother's behavioral changes long before anyone else noticed. The girl didn't invent these things. She lived them. She witnessed everything. And Ethan, the attorney continued. Thomas presented the note found under the cabinet. He left a trace, a signature, a motive to take control of Amanda's assets, eliminate her, and slowly find a way to claim Emma. Lucy closed the case file. We're requesting an emergency arrest warrant. 2 days later, in a rundown apartment complex in Miami, a door burst open as a tactical team stormed in. Ethan Martin sat typing on a laptop, a cigarette burning out in his hand. Police, the shout echoed. He turned, eyes shameless. Is there a problem? Lucy threw the arrest warrant onto the desk. Chemical abuse, attempted property seizure, and child endangerment. You're not walking away from this, Ethan. He sneered. She was already crazy. I just watched. Thomas stepped forward, eyes blazing. No. You made her crazy. Every pill, every whispered manipulation, every planted fear. You turned a mother into a nightmare in her daughter's eyes. Can you prove that? Ethan smirked. Lucy answered for him, we do. And the court will prove the rest. 1 week later, in the light psychiatric rehabilitation wing of Midtown Medical Center, Amanda sat by the window. Her gaze was still hazy, but her skin had regained the tone of someone alive. Each morning, she received music therapy and psychological counseling from a specialized nurse. Angela arrived in the afternoon, carrying an envelope. Hello, Amanda. I brought you something I think you should see. The woman turned to her slowly, her eyes quiet. Angela opened the envelope and took out a drawing, 2 figures, a mother sitting with long hair and a gentle smile, and a little girl hugging her waist, surrounded by sunlight. Emma drew it. She wanted to send it to you. Amanda's hands trembled as she gently ran her fingers across the paper. She still remembers me like this? She does, Angela said softly. And she's still waiting for you. Amanda bit her lip. I don't deserve to see her again. I'm not a mother anymore. No. You're not the one who caused this, Angela said, holding her hand. And Emma knows that. That same day, at the Child Protection Center, Emma sat on the playroom floor, arranging wooden blocks into the shape of a house. Elizabeth walked in and sat beside her. "Emma, do you miss your mom?" The girl nodded. "If your mom comes back, would you be scared?" Emma looked up, her eyes clear but cautious. "I want her to come back, but only if she doesn't have the black eyes anymore." Elizabeth smiled gently, stroking her hair. "I believe your mom is finding her way back to the light." The next morning, a closed court session was held. Ethan Martin sat with his head bowed, the arrogance from before completely gone. Expert testimony, chemical analyses, witness statements from Thomas and Elizabeth, and Emma's drawings all laid out like blades of truth. "You used the substance promethazine to manipulate Amanda Hayes' behavior," the prosecutor stated. "And you approached Emma with the intent of building a future claim for custody." The defense attorney mumbled weakly, "There was no direct act of violence." The prosecutor's tone hardened. "You didn't need to strike her. You erased her mind and made a child believe her own mother was a monster." The verdict was delivered. Ethan was sentenced to 12 years in prison, with a permanent restraining order barring him from Amanda and Emma. After the trial, Thomas and Angela visited Amanda at the treatment facility. "He's been arrested," Thomas said. Amanda looked out the window in silence, then spoke softly, "I remember everything now. The whispers in the night. The glass of water every morning. The dizziness. The moments I screamed at Emma and didn't know why I was angry." "You were never the monster," Angela said gently. "You were the victim." Amanda turned, and for the first time in months, she smiled faintly. "Can I see Emma?" 1 week after the trial, the weather in Orange County warmed following days of rain. The sky was clear, and soft sunlight poured through the window of the special visitation room at the Psychological Recovery Center. Emma sat on a small sofa, her feet swinging gently. In her hands were a blank sheet of paper and a brand new box of crayons. "Would you like to draw?" Angela asked as she entered, carrying a warm glass of milk. Emma nodded, as light as a breeze. But instead of immediately drawing, she looked up at Angela and whispered, "Is Mom coming today?" Angela sat beside her, smiling. "Yes. But only if you want her to." Emma was quiet for a moment, then nodded softly. "I want Mom to come back. I miss her. But I'm scared." "What are you scared of?" Emma whispered, "I'm scared her nails will be long again. And I won't recognize her." Angela held Emma's hand warmly. "Your mom is trying very hard to return. I believe that today you'll see the real her, with gentle hands and eyes like sunshine." At the same time, in the room next door, Amanda sat across from Elizabeth and Thomas. She wore a cream-colored sweater, her hair neatly tied, and the shadows beneath her eyes had faded. For the first time in many months, she spoke softly. "I don't know if Emma will forgive me." Elizabeth smiled gently. "You don't need to ask for forgiveness. Emma remembers that her mother once held her in her arms. And that memory, she's never let go of it." Thomas added, "What matters now is showing Emma that you've come back." Amanda nodded, her eyes misty. "I used to look in the mirror and not see myself. I saw someone else. Someone with a cold laugh. Someone scratching walls. But deep inside, there was still a place untouched. And that place, always called Emma's name." The formal visitation began. The door to the special room opened. Emma sat silently. As Amanda walked in, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. Amanda stood still, not approaching. She placed her hand over her chest, her voice trembling. "Emma. I'm here." The girl didn't react at first. She just stared at her mother's hands, the ones that had once borne claws in her drawings, in her dreams, in her blurred memories. "I've cut them all," Amanda said, her voice breaking. "There's nothing left to scare you anymore. Only me." Emma got up from her seat, walking slowly. Their eyes met. "Do you still scratch the walls?" the girl asked. Amanda lowered her head, tears falling. "No. Now I just want to draw with you." Then Emma ran to her, throwing herself into her mother's arms. She clutched Amanda tightly around the waist, as if afraid to lose her again. "You really came back," she sobbed. "You're not a shadow anymore." After that meeting, everyone noticed a visible change in Emma. She began eating better, sleeping through the night. She drew more often, and for the first time, bright colors returned to her pages. Elizabeth held up one of Emma's recent drawings, her eyes welling up. It showed a mother and daughter standing in a flower garden, behind them a small house bathed in golden sunlight. Elizabeth whispered, "No more black eyes. No more long hands. No more clawing. Just love." Angela looked at the drawing, then sat beside Emma. "What do you see when you draw this?" Emma beamed. "Mom is singing. Like when I was little. She used to wash my hair and sing 'Twinkle, twinkle, little star.'" Angela burst into tears. "You kept that memory all this time?" Emma nodded. "Even if Mom changed, memories don't change." 1 month later, Amanda was approved to leave the facility and live in a supervised apartment near the center. She came to see Thomas, unsure. "I don't know where to begin. I never even learned how to brush her hair right, or how to mix formula." "And now?" Thomas placed a hand on her shoulder calmly. "No one teaches you how to be a mother after a nightmare. But there's someone who can show you." "Who?" "Emma." On a warm afternoon, Amanda and Emma planted a tree together in front of the recovery center. Emma scooped soil while Amanda gently placed a seedling in the pot. "Mom, will this tree grow fast?" "No, sweetie. It needs time. Sunlight, water, and even rainy days. Like me and you." Amanda pulled Emma into a hug. "Yes. We need time too. But I believe the tree will bloom." The final meeting at the center was held to reflect on the recovery journey. During the meeting, Angela spoke. "There are children who never say a word, because they're not allowed to, or because they're too small to name what is happening to them. But Emma drew. And each stroke of her pencil was a cry for help." Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. "Sometimes, a colored pencil is more powerful than 1,000 cries." Thomas concluded, Emma wasn't just rescued. She rescued her mother. In a handwritten letter Emma gave to Elizabeth, she wrote, "Dear Miss Elizabeth. Today I hugged my mom and didn't feel scared. She kissed my forehead, and her hands were soft like a pillow. I draw my mom a lot. She wears a white dress, has smooth hair, and bright eyes. I named the drawing. Mom came back from the darkness. I love you. Emma." The following month, Emma left the center and went to live with her mother in a new apartment near the sea. Every morning, the two of them walked to the shore to watch the sunrise. Amanda bought Emma a new set of watercolor paints and a thick sketchbook. "Do you want to draw me?" Amanda asked as they sat on a stone bench in the park. "I'd be really happy if you did," Amanda smiled. Emma nodded, then began to draw. In the picture, for the first time, her mother was no longer a shadowy figure. She was a radiant woman, her hair flowing in the breeze, arms wide open, and a bright red heart glowing on her chest. At the bottom of the page, Emma wrote, "This is the real mom. And my mom has come back." This story shows that sometimes, the deepest pain doesn't come from screaming but from silence, especially in a child's world. Emma couldn't say what was happening to her, but through her drawings, she saved her own mother. The greatest lesson is this: listen to children with your whole heart, because the things they don't say are often the most important, and above all, justice and truth even when delayed can still bring light and healing, if we are patient enough, loving enough, and brave enough.
If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.